Welcome to B&W Insights. I'm your host, Mark Siefert, and this episode is one that I've been looking forward to for the last month. We're going to spend today's episode looking back over the last year at the podcasts, see what's changed, and most importantly, I get to sit next to one of my best friends and my partner in crime in our Municipal Services Department, Michael Fontanez. Ready? Let's get started. Welcome down today, Michael. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited. This is one of those episodes that I've been looking forward to, episode number 18.
Fired up.
Get to spend time with you talking about the last year, the podcast. I still remember the first day I was driving up here to record the first podcast. I was on the phone with you the whole time, and you were giving me all kinds of tips and tricks, and I don't know how it's gone since then, but
I think it's gone pretty well. I listen in. I'm one of your listeners.
I appreciate that. You're a subscriber and a follower?
Subscriber, follower.
That's most important.
No doubt. Share it on LinkedIn.
Attaboy. But, you know, I want to talk about your background because you joined Baxter Woodman about a year and a half, 2 years ago, came from the public sector. Public Works changed your life. We've all seen that video. But talk about why you made this jump into the private sector and coming to Baxter Woodman and how your experience has helped you here.
Yeah. Well, starting in public works first, I started at the very bottom, knew nothing. My dad thought I was going to play professional baseball, and I had to pivot when I wasn't actually that good at it. So started off cutting grass, public works, and got into the water department. Got lucky, got a job offer. I remember thinking, there's Homer Simpson from The Simpsons when he works in the nuclear plant. And he's just pushing buttons and things are going. I remember thinking that's how it's going to be working in the water department. Right. And first day I worked on a water main break. I was like, what is happening here?
There's no buttons, but there was donuts.
Yeah.
There was probably donuts afterwards.
So got into the water department, worked my way up from there. That's awesome. Right. Don't cut this.
All right. For those of you who are listening without video, part of our set just fell apart. So we're going to get right back into Michael's story, talking about that first water main break and how Public Works really shaped his career path.
Yeah.
Michael?
So it is hard to regroup after that. I got into Public Works with no knowledge, learned a lot when I was in Buffalo Grove, spent 12 years basically mastering the craft, and moved on to Northbrook as utility supervisor there. And then I got a call from you saying, hey, I got an opportunity over here. And I remember asking you, like, what are you really doing it for? What are we doing on that side? And you sold me by saying, we're going to help more than just one community. Like, when you come over here, we're going to help multiple communities and the things you're doing. And I laugh, because we know each other so well. Mm-hmm. But I was inspired by it. God, I hate to say that.
It's okay.
I hate to tell you that's your face. But I was inspired by it. And since I've come here, it's been that. It's been awesome.
Well, and that's what I want to spend today. We've had many years together, and looking at this past year, the podcast, and some of those things that we've learned together by listening to the podcast, that our listeners have learned by listening to the podcast. I want to take and look back at those and see what's changed.
Yeah. Well, like going to the podcast for a sec, why, I guess I've always wondered, like, why did you start it? Who is it for? Because when I listen to it, we always joke around, we're water nerds and stuff like that, so we like it. But why'd you start it?
Yeah, and that's obviously when I had this crazy idea and took it to Carolyn Greaves and a bunch of staff here, they were like, why? And I think you can appreciate, and a lot of our listeners can appreciate, when you're in the public sector and you're a director or a city administrator, or you're at that level where you're presenting to a board or your superiors, eventually your voice and your ideas sometimes need that help. I feel as a public
needs
works,
that third party kind of.
Yeah, as a public works director, you're always asking for money. I need money for a new water main. I need money for a new road. I need a new treatment plant. And you're always asking for money. And sometimes you just need that industry expert to say, hey, this has to happen, especially with the changing regulations. Regulations are changing quarterly. And sometimes a council or a board or even your boss, just hearing it from us talking to Jason Fleur, talking to Megan Fox, talking to Nikki Schaefer about PFAS, talking to Caitlin about lead, hearing it from those people who are living and breathing PFAS, lead, roundabouts, whatever that topic might be.
Love the roundabout. Shout out, Jason.
And, hearing those things, giving our public work director friends, our city administrator friends, that they can send it. Hey, listen to this episode of B&W Insights. This can explain what we're talking about at the board level.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I never made it to that level, but as the operator down, I think it's also, because when I listen to some episodes, admittedly, I haven't listened to every single one. Sorry, I had to say that. But the ones, I am listening to ones where I'm like, I know nothing about this. So it's also just interesting for everybody.
Yeah, and like the sea level rise.
Yeah, that was cool.
Us being up here in northern Illinois, we have Lake Michigan, but, hearing, Jeff talk about how sea level rise is impacting not only sea communities, but the further you go inland because of hydrology, it's just awesome to learn.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in public works are lifelong learners.
Yeah.
We're learning something new.
Absolutely.
So I think when we were talking originally in a meeting with Carolyn and the marketing crew, it was, who is this for? And that's what it was. It was, we want to help our clients. We want to help people in the industry. And we want to make a space where people can learn, but also use what we're saying to help advance their budgets, their day-to-day life.
So what's your favorite one? I guess we shouldn't say favorite because that leaves other people out.
No, there's not a favorite.
You look back, you're like, hey.
This is the way that I always know. And after every episode, I look right to Carolyn, who sits off over to my right, and she says, "You really were interested in that one." She can tell when I am dialed in.
Oh yeah. Side note: everybody, you can tell. You should watch the video of this because Mark gets really excited. Big smile. Lean in.
Yep.
Good 40-degree lean in.
Yep. When I get in, it's something that I've never heard before or I'm really excited about. But the urban planning with Kristen, talking to Alex Hahn last month, it was that one was just inspiring.
Yeah.
But also, you've admittedly said it, we're water nerds. So talking to Caitlin in the first episode, that really launched us off. Lead is such a huge topic in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talk about it 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, and talking about that with Caitlin really as the first episode, which I still think is one of the highest listened to episodes because it affects everyone in this country.
Yeah, it's impacting people. Even if you don't have lead in your communities, it's impacting you. You're still having to do it with testing and communications as far as educational materials. So it's still affecting everyone.
Yeah, and admittedly, there are those people who may not be in the water part of the industry. They may be in transportation, stormwater, wastewater. They're still affected by it because they probably own a house or live in an apartment or something. It still affects them. Sure. It's one of the only episodes that truly has affected every person who could potentially listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's one of those where, I look back and then there's the surprise episodes where I learned things like the Kristen Emshoff's episode about planning, where she was talking about how in Texas they are really looking at how they're growing communities. Do they want to grow by population? Do they want to grow by size? Maybe they can't grow by size, so they have to redevelop. And thinking about those things that are happening across our country that we may not see here because we may have area to do a little bit of urban sprawl.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how different states, even here in Illinois, right, just different areas, For those of you, Mark and I like to joke around about, he's from the south side of the Chicago area, I'm from the north side, and that's so different. But then we talk about different states.
Yeah.
It's I feel like different countries sometimes.
And, as we move into, I think our favorite topic of water, we always bring, whether it's the urban planning, whether it's seawater rise, whether it's Andy Zaletel and spatial technology talking about how we can use our water drones or our regular air drones to look at water towers. Everything we're always doing maybe kind of draws a little bit back to water. If you can't build a city unless you have the water infrastructure.
No doubt.
So we always bring it back to water, and I really want to spend at least a couple of minutes talking about you found water and you went to Public Works and you went to the water department. How is water and your love of water and growth in the water industry really shaped the way you live and the things you think about every day?
Yeah, the people in my personal life, they definitely get sick of me talking about water. Well, first of all, getting into it, I had no idea. I didn't know what it was about at all. Going back to the, Homer Simpson, little story about just pushing buttons at a water tower. By the way, Buffalo Grove doesn't even have water towers, so that just shows you how much I didn't know. But we can't do anything without it. When we talk about, power or gas or whatever other utility, nothing can go without water. And that's what I always come back to. Fresh water. We think about, look at I'm a big guy, I just like looking at maps. And you look at maps, right?
That is the definition of water nerd. I look at maps.
I know, I do. I just love to look at maps. My wife will send me a Zillow house, and the first thing I do is I look at the maps. Did you look at the pictures? I was like, well, did you look at where it is?
Yeah. Did you look at the topography?
Yeah. Are we close to a river? But yeah, it's just water in general. It's seeing how people live around it, seeing how people. I say interact is such a lame way to say it, but how people, especially with the bottled water thing, which I get kind of crazy about because people are so into bottled water, and it just boggles my mind. We could talk about that more here today, but it all starts. I know there's a corny way to say all this stuff, but it really just starts with water. Mm-hmm. Nothing else can get going without it.
So, 17 years I think you spent in the public sector.
Yeah,
I think we both did 17 years, and so combined, we could retire.
Nice.
That would have been nice. But talk about, your time in the public sector. You've now come to the consulting side. How are the challenges different, or what are the challenges that are the same?
I mean, off the jump, the challenges are when you're on the public sector side, you're not thinking about making money. I joke about this when we've gotten more snow this year in Illinois than we have all of last year in Illinois. And I was describing to my wife about snow events. And this is the second snow event, and this is what we got to do, blah, blah, blah. And she was laughing she said, nobody calls it snow events. I was like, well, what do you call it? She's like, we call it snow. I was like, okay, that's fair.
But
from the
truth be told, any of the public works directors or anybody in public works listening, it's a snow event.
Snow event. Yeah.
We don't just call it snow. It's an event. We have to make it as important as possible.
Yeah, no doubt.
We get after the snow event, we get our pizza or our lunch. We have to get something out of this.
Yep. But from the public side, we think about safety and we think about service. And not that we don't do that on the private side now here with B&W, but there's not a money aspect to it. And I enjoyed also the fact that when you're on the public side, you're the owner of that utility or of that thing, whether it be streets or trees or whatever. You own that thing. And on the consultant side, we don't own it. We in our team on operations, we talk about acting like we do because we all come from that. But we are really in the, we're trying to give the best information we can now to multiple people. And I think that's been it took me a little while, but that's been just as sometimes and more in others fulfilling when we're helping out 6-7 communities on a lead and copper program or any kind of sampling procedures or regulatory compliance stuff. It is fun to help multiple people because you look around and you see, okay, there's people that need help everywhere. And you sold me on that, and I see it now.
And truth be told, there are a lot of communities who don't have all of the resources. They need just that little bit of help. And that's why I think, we enjoy so much in seeing, when we get a phone call, we may not be getting the main break call at 2 a.m., but the 2 p.m., hey, I have a sample issue, or we have this question about this pump or dosing of chemicals. Helping a community any way we can really lets us get back into that public work side of it that we spent so many years in, and we almost instinctively want to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's funny, too, now being on this side, you don't stop learning. I think that's how I got here is just being curious about stuff because I never felt talented. I was just curious enough about, these subjects. I just kept learning. And now being at B&W, I'm learning so much, even from distribution system, they're ran differently. Sometimes it's politics, sometimes it's not. And it's just, it's fun to, and as we learn too, now we can apply and help others in what we've taken in.
Yeah. So I want to jump in and the purpose of this episode is really looking back at the past 17 episodes and some of the highlights and things that, we really enjoyed, myself and the entire crew here who have put these episodes together. And I think it would be a disservice not to jump into the first episode and really, talk back about lead and Caitlin Wright. So let's take a listen to some of those clips.
The simple answer, it's a neurotoxin. It's incredibly impactful on our development for our children. And there's no safe exposure level to lead. So the only way to really reduce that risk is remove sources of lead.
Okay.
If communities haven't started that process, now's the time.
Now's the time. We're not waiting any longer.
No, don't wait any longer. And then for communities that have already identified.
Listen to those clips. It's exciting to go back and hear how we thought about lead in late 2024, early 2025, and all the things that have changed. So, Mike, I know you spend a lot of your time.
Just mic'd me too. Didn't even hit me with the Michael. Just mic'd me.
Yeah, sorry, Michael. I know you spend a lot of time with lead and copper. What are some of those things that have changed since we talked about the original October 2024 lead and copper replacement? Now we're today, especially in the sampling and public education.
I think even going back, I'm thinking about 2020. I wouldn't say we didn't take it serious, but I don't think we really understood how intense this was going to be. Like it always feels like, okay, especially when you're doing any kind of project, whatever it is, like, okay, when you have deadlines 2027 and you're in 2024, or it's 2030, you're like, okay, we have time. And it's amazing how that stuff just comes up on you quick.
Lead really jumped up on many communities.
Yeah.
We get that call all the time of, hey, this is due next month.
Yeah.
Where did all the time go?
Yeah, and also with the lead part, staff, especially on the public works side, they are at capacity. They are doing. They're not messing around. They're not bored 25% of the time. They're there. They're at full capacity of what they can do. And when lead came in, and I say like we kind of thought, okay, we'll see how this goes. It is so the lift is so heavy, and now what I'm seeing too is departments where. You want to talk about job changes? I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Even at a maintenance worker or an operator level, the expectation of the jobs, you have those people now running your lead programs because you just have to. The program is so huge to manage it.
So what are those, I know originally it was, we were saying, what is the sampling going to be like? What are some of those changes in sampling that happened?
Well, sampling, as far as, the amount of sampling you have to do, the timeline you have to do, that increased, especially with 2025. Communities really kind of found out at the regulatory update last year that, hey, this is coming in. You're going to have to do double what you used to do. You're going to have to do it twice this year instead of once every 3 years. And it was like, whoa, we have to do this stuff.
And you have to find people who want to do it.
Yeah, that's...
And the one thing I've been hearing from a lot of communities is, we could find 60 people the first time, but they didn't know they were going to have to do it right away again, and again.
God forbid you had an exceedance. Now they were going to do it twice in 2025. Now they're doing it 4 times in 2025. And it's funny, now being out of public works, when you're in it, everything's so important. We got to get these educational letters out and blah, blah, blah. And we look at the customers or the residents as in, we have to do this lead and copper project, sampling and notification. I think, with your comments about getting people to be involved with it, we really need to reach them where they're at, which is people are going to work every day. They come home. If they get a letter in the mail that says, hey, you have a lead and copper line, they're not reading that thing like, oh, my God, we got to call Public Works right now and get on this. So we need to find ways to actually connect with these residents. And when I say we, as the municipalities, as the utilities, to really explain what this is, and not just handing out letters and saying this, because people aren't even reading these things, right? And that's something I see that needs to be changed on the public side, is how we are approaching residents, because how they're taking in the info.
And that goes back to the public education and trust building. We look at CCRs, the consumer confidence reports. We look at all the letters that have to go out, if the sample results going to residents. And that's one of those things that it's meant to help build that trust. We talked in a lot of the early episodes, whether it was with Dan Bounds at MS4, with Nikki or Megan and PFAS, it's about giving residents the information they need and being truthful with them.
Yeah. And with trust building, you hear this kind of stuff at like leadership trainings, but find somebody on your team, somebody in your department who's excited about it. Maybe they're excited about everything, but who gets excited about this and who can connect. Let that person be your quote unquote champion. So if you have somebody who is not really about it or feels like they're just doing it, that's not the person you want building trust for the community. So all those 60 people, have someone go out there, touch base, spend 10, 15 minutes, tell them about this. Because every time we get something nowadays, it's like, your water's safe, but we got lead, you got to do this, you got to do that, THMs, HAs.
THM.
THM? What did I say, THMs?
No, THM. What is it?
Trihalomethane. Trihalomethane, yeah.
There we go.
Thank you.
So
what's HA5?
HA5? Oh, goodness.
Okay.
Which one is it?
Haloacid. You know what? We'll cut that part maybe. Maybe they'll leave it in.
No, we'll leave that one
we
in.
just say HA5s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's what it really comes down to is, hey, let's talk to these people like they're regular. Sorry, I'm banging on the table here for you guys. Let's talk to these people about what's really happening. Your water is safe to drink. We're talking about when your water passed through lead lines. I think really too on the operator side with us, when we're helping out communities, we need to make sure we really understand beyond the law what this stuff is.
Yeah.
What are we really telling people? Because we want to tell them your water's safe, but we also want to tell them, oh, look out for all this stuff.
Yeah.
You need that. That's why I say
There's
go
a
back.
balance.
Yeah,
There's
you
a
need
balance.
that person who can go in there and say, hey, this is what's happening here, and be honest about it, because we know we're all doing a good job.
Right.
We all know your water's safe. Don't drink bottled water. We all know those things.
So I'm going to switch completely off of water, and
Okay.
which is sometimes uncomfortable for us. But this morning I mentioned one word, and you were all about them, roundabouts.
Love them.
So like the love them, hate them episode, you just said love them.
I was dialed into that episode.
You didn't. So my hate them, you just threw out the window.
You hate it? You still hate them?
No, I don't. Okay.
Like after all that knowledge you got, you still hate it?
I know I don't hate them. I think there needs to be a math class on roundabouts.
Yeah.
I think roundabout math should be taught. I'm listening to my GPS, and we drive a ton, and it's take the fourth left. So now I'm trying to look out for cars, drive, and then now I'm counting which one my fourth left is. It's like,
yeah, I don't know if Jason said this in the podcast, but there was the town in Indiana that has like 98% of its intersections are roundabouts. They said like that Christmas vacation was it was Europe vacation.
European vacation.
Yeah, Chevy Chase, when they went to the big one, and that's what people think about. And I used to think about that myself.
Yeah.
I used to be like, I would always think like, how do the pedestrians cross the road? Like that seems a little intense, like there's no like clear walking path there. But every time I'm sitting at a red light, and I don't go, but I want to go, because you're sitting there for a while, you're on a side street. Like those are the types of things where it just keeps the traffic moving. The other thing is I just watched a car accident the other day. Boom, T-bone. And that's one of the big things is that you have people slowing down, in a safe manner. You don't have those high, and I just seen it the other day. I was thinking, this is a place that we should have a roundabout.
And in your former self of being a former podcast host yourself, you just led us straight into a perfect clip from Jason Fleur. Let's take a listen. Why in the last 5 years are we seeing them pop up more?
Quite simply because they're just a safer form of intersection. They're the safest form of intersection.
Okay.
And as a transportation engineer, that's your primary guiding principle, is to save lives, vision zero. And so it's proven study after study that roundabouts reduce not only accidents, but injury accidents and fatalities by up to 80 to 90% on injuries and fatality-related accidents, and accidents as a whole between 25 and 50%. And so whereas tow trucks are going to arrive at a roundabout accident, ambulance oftentimes arrive at signalized intersection accidents.
So was there something? All right, listening to Jason Fleur talk about the T-bone accidents versus a roundabout. And in a T-bone accident, you're leaving in a hearse versus a roundabout, you're leaving in an ambulance, is a really powerful sentiment talking about why roundabouts are so safe. So to your initial point of coming after me about love them or hate them, I like them. You're
still a little confused.
Yeah.
See, I think people, maybe I don't want to say people like you, because my wife's also in there. Because you had trouble with your GPS, you were saying you were going left and the roundabout's one way, so I don't know where you were going there.
I was driving in the middle.
Maybe you need to be one of those people that do like the driver's test over again. Probably every 10 years. That's you.
I don't know when you were in driver's ed, did they teach us roundabouts? I never got taught about roundabout.
No.
So, okay, so.
Because we didn't have roundabouts around here.
Right.
But this is just like a little tip for you. When you're doing your directions, turn on the satellite map that actually shows you the roads.
Oh,
don't do the little like cartoon one, because that can get very confusing. But if you see,
All right.
that's a little pro tip for you people out there.
Oh, pro tip.
Yeah.
Another good episode that I really, I think it was the second, third, or fourth. I think it was second or third episode.
Fifth or sixth, maybe.
Fifth or one of the two. I'm not going to say after 5 or 6, because then we'll have a whole generation of kids loving this podcast. Spatial technology. Andy Zlettel is one of my favorite people to listen talking about, spatial tech. And when we first started that episode, I think one of the best lines was him talking about what is spatial tech. So let's take a listen.
But I think the simplest way is to kind of say it's the science of where. It's where something is, what it is, and kind of how it relates to the things around it. It's applicable, I think, in the majority of ways that we go about our daily business, especially here at B&W.
Nice. So listen to Andy Zlettel talk about spatial technology is the why. It's an X, Y, Z, and we're making sure it's putting points on a map and making sure it's public works and community development and all the parts of a municipality can use spatial technology. I assume you, in your past life, have used GIS and GPS a ton.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't feel that old, but I've prime year 2, by the way, in case you guys didn't know, your prime is 35 to 55. Just that's a side note. Catch me on another podcast for that. But I remember when GIS was coming to us in Buffalo Grove, and we had the big maps still, big paper maps.
Big paper maps that you'd roll up, throw them behind the seat of the truck. Yeah.
Yep. And when we got the GIS, I was like, we're not using this. This thing's, because when it first came out, it wasn't very accurate, right? But it takes time to put that data in. And now I just think, I know there's communities that still don't have it. It's like, how could we live without it, right? We have the backup, but.
And so we look at where we talked with Andy, and that right when we were talking to Andy, that's when our bathymetric drones were just coming out. We were doing lake surveys. In the last year, we've moved on to 3D mapping of water towers with our drones, where you can put a point on a water tower, take the exact picture, and we're almost inspection level quality. We're talking about Muni Maps, which is our own Baxter and Woodman asset management.
Love it, yeah.
It's a way where public works departments can work and customize a asset management that works for them and integrates with their GIS. And I think that's one of the hardest parts is you have all these companies, you have all these softwares, you have this app talking to that app. Bringing it into one place is huge.
Super important. And, when I was in Northbrook, one of the biggest things about using the GIS asset management was we were doing a ton of work, doing a ton of great work, right? But I didn't have any way to show that data. Mm-hmm. And that's what GIS really helped me with, was showing, upper management, whether it be trustees or whether it be like my upper management in public works, like what we were actually doing. Little things like hydrant repairs, valves that we exercised, water main breaks, tracking this kind of stuff. It's huge. And you
took the knowledge that was in one of your employees' head for the last 30 years and put it on a computer, and it's there for the next million years.
That's actually huge, because people move around now. Mm-hmm. I think our generation has changed it where you used to be in a spot and you'd think, okay, they're going to be there for 30 years, they'll be there forever. And now it seems like it's like on a 5-year track where people move around. So it's important to have that data set up so that when new people come in, you can quickly transition.
So one of the big topics big themes we had in all of 2025 for the podcast was what challenges and opportunities are there in this industry for 2026? Where do you see water, public works, all of that going? Where are those challenges, where are those opportunities we have in the next year?
Well, from the public works side of things, I think that people, and this is what I was kind of getting at before with now that I'm out of public works and just a resident. When I was in it before, one of the things like CCR reports, consumer confidence reports, we tell people like how all the tests that we did. We talked to them about the basically the description of their water and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody reads those, right? So we put that out. We put a lot of work into that stuff, and maybe 10 people actually read those. And with that, the reason why I bring that up is because we need to find ways to actually reach people on a natural, in a natural way. Mm-hmm. Whether it's at farmers markets, you talk to a few people. One of the things I love is like when you get your community leaders. We talk about things like community leaders, but that's the people. Like I got my neighbor down the street. She runs the farmers market for Arlington Heights. Like those are the people you talk to. Tell them about all the things you're doing great for, drinking water, and then let her be the person who kind of word of mouth spreads that out to people.
Let community leaders help you with PR.
Yeah, but when people come home from work, they want to watch their the Wheel of Fortune. Love Wheel of Fortune. Like they want to decompress. They don't want to sit here and read some handout about lead in drinking water or PFAS or whatever at a technical level, the way we do it every day for our lives, mm-hmm. right? They need it broken down. We need to find ways to talk to people on a third grade level, mm-hmm. With some compassion, with some heart,
So you've admitted today that you haven't listened to every episode, so I'm not going to hold you to the answer. But as a listener, what are some of those topics you want to hear in 2026 from this podcast?
Some of those topics. Geez, I wasn't prepared for that. I feel like
I know I'm looking forward to some updates on things like having Caitlin back with lead. We have some big work coming up. Talking to our wastewater department, some of the amazing things we're doing in our wastewater department with new technology. We're taking stuff coming in through the sewers, and it's almost near drinking water quality standards. Some of the amazing work that our transportation team's doing. We have some big roadways getting done this year through Baxter Woodman, and really seeing what comes next from the industry. I think some of my favorite episodes were when we were at WaterCon or the Wisconsin AWWA, getting out to those events and talking to the municipalities and the industry leaders at a conference in the field. So I know we're looking at which conferences we're going to next year, but I think that's really exciting on my end, talking to 5, 6, 7 people at a time and feeling with how they're seeing this industry.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I was just thinking about like the residents, the people, right? Like what affects them. And the episode with sea level rise also makes me think about, I don't remember where I was the other day, but they were talking about 1,000-year storms. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even realize we used that term.
Yeah, that's a new one. It used to be 10-year, 100-year,
yeah,
500-year.
5, 10, 100-year storm, right?
1,000-year.
So that's now, that is affecting people. Mm-hmm. That is something that people think about. I remember
So maybe it's emergency preparedness and residential flooding and some of those things that we haven't thought about before.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to see these now you see parking lots that are underground storm reservoirs, mm-hmm. And just like highlight. I think that's up to me is fun. Mm-hmm. Not even like because we're in the industry, but I think people would. I mean, my wife here learns all about this stuff because I'm like, hey, you see that parking lot over there? Yeah, there's an underground reservoir, holds the water. It does, and she's like, take it right here. But yeah, that's something that interests me is more about the changing of the weather and how that's affecting us, how it's affecting our clean water, the whole water cycle, right? I mean, that's pretty cool.
Well, thank you for spending your afternoon with me, coming down to the podcast studio. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And let's look forward to a fun 2026.
No doubt.
Thanks.
Tune in.
That was fun. I mean, honestly, being able to sit here, recap all the amazing work we did in 2025 and all the amazing guests we talked to, and having a little bit of fun, this podcast has been an amazing journey. This journey that we started with an idea has now gone to episode 18. Never thought it would get this far, but we have an amazing team. And honestly, if I did not thank the people behind the camera, the people in our marketing department, getting this out there so you can all listen to it, I just sit here with a mic in front of me and talk. There's a lot of people who make this look good. Zach, Chris, Carolyn, Megan, the entire team here at Baxter Women. So if you enjoy what you heard today or any of the podcast, like, subscribe, follow, listen along in our journey, and we're excited for a fun 2026. Thanks.